Welcome to the Nintendo 64 Diaries series. To honor the 30th anniversary of the Nintendo 64, Call Me By Your Game is going to hear from past guests throughout the year 2026 about what the N64 means to them. These entries will be known as the Nintendo 64 Diaries, or the N64 Diaries, if you don't feel like saying the whole name. Normally, Call Me By Your Game, the podcast on which you're listening to this, is a podcast where I, the host, Conner McCabe, bring on a guest to hear from them about a meaningful video game from a particular moment in their life. What makes this show different is that I not only talk to the guest about what makes playing that game special, what memories still stick out in their mind, but I dive into the context of the how and when and why they played this game at all. What was memorable about the time in their life when they played it? What do they still smell, think of, hear from that time? Like, what are the visceral memories that come back? So that's what we normally do here on the show, but I don't know how many times this year, perhaps once a month, perhaps less than that if it grows tired, but I'm going to hear from people about the Nintendo 64 and just what it means to them, because 30 years ago, roughly this September, this console came into existence. No one spent time developing it. It just appeared. Well, of course, it was released around that time. I've got some housekeeping to do before we dive into the show proper. Anything that I plug today on the podcast or things that I reference, you can find links in the show notes. That also is the case if you are looking for ways to support the show. So if you want to follow us on social media, if you want to support us on Patreon, there are links below where you can do that. Specifically for our Patreon, if you like me and the conversations I have with people about video games, and you want to find bonus episodes of that exact thing, there are hundreds and hundreds of bonus video game podcasts over at patreon.com/super NPC Radio, the podcast network that myself and producer of this show, Jeremy Schmidt, founded about 6.5 years ago. And the N64 was only a mere 24 at the time. Turning 25. But anyway, any links that you want to follow to support us and check out things that we have going on, check out a bonus series that are on free feeds like the Super NPC Games Club. There's a bunch of stuff there. I do so much more than just this podcast on the network, so if you want to find, episodes that are more of an overview on one game in a roundtable discussion, we've got those. If you want to find a Games Club series where we're talking about one game at a time in a book club style format, we've got that. Currently, we're covering Fire Emblem Awakening for the Nintendo 3DS over on our Patreon feed, and on the public feed, our old series from 2024 where we covered the original Death Stranding is there as well. As far as the housekeeping for the show goes, that's pretty much it. Normally, I'm going to bring somebody on and interview them about what this console means to them. But today, you're going to get a little more of me, Conner McCabe, your host, and I'm just going to have a conversation with myself about this. I could have brought someone on to host and ask me the sort of questions that I plan to ask people on this series, but today it's just me. And I'm assuming that for most of you, this is not your first episode of the podcast. Just in case it is, I'm an actor, writer, comedy performer, video game developer, podcaster, jack of all trades, master of none. My name's Conner. I live in Los Angeles. I'm from, as it's going to come up today, the Central Valley of California. I've lived in LA for about 12 years now, going on 13. And while I am in the arts, one of my huge passions has always been video games. And for the past going on 7 years, this fall, this November, I've been hosting this podcast. But yeah, it's a little bit about me. You're probably familiar. You'll learn a lot more about me as this episode continues, and if you just listen to the show in general, because I'm always talking about myself. But I am really excited to get into this with you because the N64, means a lot to me and a lot to many other people, many of which I've had on the show. So let's get into a little introducing the series proper. I gave a preview earlier, but the N64 Diaries, why are we doing this? This console comes up so often on this podcast. In the first half of each show, even though I spend the second half focusing on one game at a time, as I've already said, the time and place, the memories that come with it for somebody, in the first half of the show, I'm always asking people about their general history with video games, from first memories all the way up until whatever their relationship with games are today, presently, even things they're looking forward to. And so often what comes up in the earlier part of that discussion, probably because many of my guests are around my age, they're millennials, is the Nintendo 64. It doesn't come up on every episode, but it comes up often enough to where I knew that there were going to be a ton of people that I could continue to connect with about this system and just where it hit them and why it was special for them. There are plenty of other consoles that I have a deep love for, and some that I have a fascination for, like when we covered the PlayStation 1 last year on the network, and we did about 3 bonus episodes and a couple of other, additional pieces of bonus material covering that system. That's a system that I didn't grow up with, that I've had a developed fascination for as I've gotten older. The N64 is one I can speak to quite specifically, and I know a lot of other people can. So, I took a lot of notes here, so I'm just making sure that I've got everything I want to say. What I want to do, the series is not designed to be a comprehensive historical breakdown of what the N64 was, the details of its processing power, every title that was released on it, its highs, its lows. It's not going to be a grand overview of like something that maybe the gaming historian could do about the Nintendo 64. This series is going to be more of a look into, as I've been previewing, what it means for other people. What place is it held in their lives? Did they play it when they were growing up? Is it something that came in later for them? And is it something they still engage with today? What's out there that they loved? What's out there that they know about but have never tapped into? What mysteries are still undiscovered, and what oddities did they maybe stumble upon throughout their day playing the console? I'll also be very upfront and just tell you this is my personal favorite console of all time. I can also recognize that this is not the best console ever made. I think there are arguments for several others over this one, but I also think it kind of holds its own, punch for punch, in the quality of games that came out on it and experiences. But it's my personal favorite one. It's the one I'm most nostalgic about. It's the console that I probably have like my most extensive experience with any console as well. So it's not only a strong love that I have for it, but a fairly deep experience of the games on it, despite. And that all, is probably not too crazy of a thing to say, because this console only released something like 300 plus games, maybe under 400 titles were available for the Nintendo 64. Yeah, I'm just really excited to celebrate, all that this console is. And for me, it was really just like a launching pad into games being something that I really care about. So this console is incredibly important, not just to me and many others, but without this console, this show, especially in the way that we know it today, would not exist. And the show is about talking to people about why video games mean something specific to them, and I think that's really great. So, how am I going to be doing this year? I've already told you I'm going to be inviting guests on throughout the year. I expect everyone will be a past guest that you've heard on the show. I have not asked anyone to come on yet, but there are plenty of people that I really want to return to the podcast. I think a lot of these will probably be solo one-on-one interviews like I usually do, but I could see a situation where I end up bringing on a couple people at a time for a little tandem in the event that I have too many people that I want to ask or can't make something work at a certain time. But I'm very, very excited for that. So let's get into the N64 Diaries discussion. I have a list here of just general questions that I plan to ask my guests, more structured than my show normally is during the main event. When I'm doing my podcast and having someone to talk about a game, I do have some general starting places that I will go to as far as how I'm going to conduct an interview and go about, asking them certain questions. There are certain things that I think are helpful for jogging memories, certain things that are helpful for being a starting point in a conversation, ways to wrap things up, but I try to also have a bit of leave an organic element to it and let the conversation inspire the questions that I ask. Even though I'm sure if you listen to the show and you listen to it a lot, you're going to know that I also have a lot of, like I've said, go-tos and things that I maybe ask in different ways, but I try to be a little more organic. That could happen in the future episodes. Today will probably be less so. I'm kind of going to go down a list of questions and topics that I really feel like discussing. And we've got to start for me, from the beginning. As I've said earlier, this console came out in the year 1996 all over the world. I think it may have released a few months earlier in Japan. That's something we could look up, though. We're on the first episode. Why don't we go ahead and look this up? I know in the United States, it came out, I want to say, in September. So, yes. Okay. According to Wikipedia, the Nintendo 64 was launched in Japan on June 23rd, 1996, and in North America, which is the region I grew up in, on September 29th, 1996, and then later in PAL regions, which is Europe and Australia, at least back then, was March 1st, 1997. So this was Nintendo's first big jump into 3D console gaming. I grew up with video games. I remember from a very early age being absolutely fascinated by the Nintendo Entertainment System specifically, but we also had a Game Boy at home. My parents, before I was even around, had an NES with a handful of games, and then at some point through work, my dad got his hands on the original model of Game Boy, I always refer to it as the big gray brick, and because of that, I was a casual gamer. I remember being a little boy and having the TV, the Nintendo Entertainment System, which I still have here, hooked up in our living room, wires dangling down because it was in a entertainment cabinet that was high off the ground, so the TV was high, and I remember having the cables from it dangling from the back or a VCR or something down to the ground, and I would play just staring up at the television in the home that I primarily lived at growing up. There is a cute picture that if I can find it, maybe I'll display here at this time, of my mom and I playing the original Nintendo together. What I'm assuming is actually happening in this video is that my mom is playing Super Mario Brothers and that I'm sitting there holding a controller and watching. I don't think I would have been playing. I'm a year and a half in this picture, very, very young. But they were, to me, video games, a hobby. Something I really enjoyed, was fascinated by, but especially growing up on that generation, the NES specifically, more so even than the Game Boy, they were incredibly difficult. So while I enjoyed them, I was terrible. I don't remember as a little boy getting very far in any games, even the more well-designed titles like Super Mario Brothers. I don't remember doing that at all. I remember also visiting my family in the St. Louis area, and they both, while we would go, my grandparents were there, and then so were my mom's parents, and my cousins were there, and each household had a Nintendo Entertainment System. So no matter where we stayed when we visited, they had an NES, and I always wanted to play their games because they not only had games that I had never heard of or seen before or didn't have, but they had sequels to games that I knew, like Super Mario Brothers 3. I knew Mario 1 and 2, as I'll refer to it, from our collection. But seeing Super Mario Brothers 3 and Mario flying in the, with the Tanuki suit or just the Tanuki tail, after getting the, in that game, is it a feather that you get? in that one. Gosh, I know it's a feather in Super Mario World and you get a cape. That's embarrassing. Either way, I really liked video games, was fascinated by them. I also started, at a certain point, we would go to there was like a pawn shop in this little area where I grew up where they would sell games secondhand. And so I remember seeing original Nintendo games that had like licensed characters on it that I knew. For example, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So I was one of the many kids who had the original, just really difficult Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles title for the NES. I also eventually got the arcade game because they sold it there. That was much more appealing because the character, they looked a lot more like the Turtles on the cover that I knew, the cartoon version, and it was a much more accessible game. But I don't remember, finally getting back to some N64 talk, I don't remember hearing that system came out as a kid. I didn't really have other friends who played video games up until a certain point in my life. I don't remember seeing commercials for it, although I may have. I probably did, watching children's television. Someone at my school must have had it the year it came out in 1996. But that's when I started school. I went to kindergarten that year, so I was 5 turning 6, so very young, and just, didn't have I didn't have Nintendo Power, of course, because I was barely into games. And it's something that has been sort of a constant in my life, is that oftentimes I'll be introduced to a new topic, a subject, an art, some media, things that I obviously didn't know about before, and I'll be so fascinated by it. But I've not always been someone who finds an interest and then seeks out more around that hobby. I do that a lot more now, but especially growing up, that was not something I really did. I was introduced to music because friends would burn me CDs. I learned about new TV shows like Futurama because my friends liked it and were like, you've got to watch this. And I know this isn't a unique experience, but I just wasn't finding any of that myself. I also didn't have any older siblings, and my cousins lived across the country, so it's not like they were introducing stuff to me outside of the 1 week we might see them every year, if that. All that being said, I remember being in a Toys R Us in what must have been 1998 and seeing my friend Mario on the TV at the playable demo system for the N64 at Toys R Us, seeing him in 3D and absolutely being blown away. To this day, when I hear Peach's Castle theme, that extremely repetitive do, I am transported back to being 5 years old, standing in a Toys R Us and hearing that and just being absolutely fascinated. I don't remember much around, about my time that day playing the game, but I just remember that as soon as I saw it, it was something that I just needed to have. And so, that Christmas, like many kids can recall, I had a similar experience to what is culturally known as the N64 kid, the famous video of the child and his sister opening the N64 and him screaming, and then her in joy, and her watching him be very excited about it too, and sort of echoing his excitement. I didn't have a reaction like that, but we still have pictures from that Christmas day, and I was just as happy as can be. I got a Nintendo 64. I remember it came with, to give some specific memories, is that they always came with a pack-in game. Mine came with Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. So I still remember feeling like getting an N64 and feeling like a tinge of disappointment, only because it wasn't Mario 64 that came with my console, but still being very, very excited and a polite, respectful boy, to where I didn't obviously react or have wasn't rude to my parents. The console came with, of course, the standard gray 3-pronged controller, and I remember really being excited for whatever color mine might come with, and it came with black, which to me was just like a darker gray and matched the system, which I just wanted like red or yellow or blue or green. Anything would have been cool, but nonetheless, still thrilled. And then, of course, as we continued to open up presents, I did get Super Mario 64. So those are the 2 games that I had when I first had my console, and just absolutely fell in love. In my stocking, too, my parents got me a little official Bowser little plushie that if you, like, he had a noise box in him, so if you pressed him, he would make one of the Bowser roars from Super Mario 64, and I had a little Mario plushie as well. They're actually up on my shelf. Those are 2 things I forgot. I'm going to have a show and tell segment. So for those of you listening on the audio portion, there's going to be some show and tell pretty soon. But I probably won't be showing those off because those are up on a shelf, and I just want to do this all in one recording. I could edit, but I don't really feel like doing that. Anyway, was so thrilled. Here, for the first part of the show and tell segment is that I'll show off my original N64 console. I still have the control deck here. So you can see, for anyone watching, you can see it's in like okay condition. I dusted it today to make sure that it was, looking nice for everybody. You can see some, I'll put this a little more front and center. You can see there's some like smudges and nicks on it and a couple little marks, but for the most part, it's still in great condition. Of course, this is getting ahead of the game a little bit, but we do have the N64 expansion pack that expanded, I believe, the random access memory for the system. Yep, memory expansion right there. But yeah, still works great. I do to this, which has always been a problem with the system, and a lot of cartridge-based systems of the day are that I, often have to, ill-advisedly blow in a cartridge or like press the on and off switch multiple times. But that's my original cartridge. And that Christmas, I loved the game more than I ever could have expected. I've told this story on the show in particular, but my grandparents, the same ones I was referring to from the St. Louis area, they were visiting, and they were polite enough to sit with me as I remember we originally had the N64 almost always hooked up in my parents' room. I didn't have a television in my room, but they had this little CRT television with a VHS that was built into the top of it. I really wish I still had theirs today. I was just so nostalgic about that. I don't remember. It may have been a Panasonic. I don't know for sure. But I remember playing that game for hours and hours and hours in my parents' room and having to go out and, put the game down to spend time with my family who was never around. And I have this one memory of, spending all of Christmas break trying to get the first 8 stars in Super Mario 64. And I finally did it. And I made my way over to the Bowser level. And here I am, about to defeat Bowser. I go in, my grandma sitting there with me, watching me, knows nothing about games, but is like so supportive. And I finally figure out how to defeat this creature, to pick him up by his tail, to swing him around, throw him off a bomb. He dies. And I am so excited. That's when I was like the N64 kid. I was yelling. I was so excited. And my grandma, who once again knows nothing about video games, says to me, "I don't think you beat the game." Because I hadn't. That was just the beginning of the game. She understood that there was like no way that the amount of time you just put into it is the entire experience that you have here. And that's probably my favorite memory of playing that game, but that is one in particular that I've revisited over and over and over and over throughout like my life. It's probably my second most played game all the way through, second or third up there. It's tied for my second favorite game of all time. It's just stood the test of time for me. But that's my like earliest memories of playing the N64 is around that. It's around Ken Griffey Jr. Major League Baseball. And so at this point, I'm like all in on the N64 and gaming, but it wasn't until I became friends with my best friend growing up, Eddie, who's been on the show many times. You'll know him, Eddie Martin. Great guy. Shout out to you, Eddie, if you're listening. But it wasn't until our friendship developed that next spring of 1999, that I was just introduced to so many avenues of games, to Nintendo Power, to Pokemon specifically, to all sorts of things on the N64. I remember seeing one of his older brothers, I think it was his older brother Alex, playing The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time in their living room. Like walking in their living room and seeing him play that game it must have been, maybe it was the next year, like 2000 or something like that. Even though that game also came out in 98. I remember seeing that and just being like, what is this? This is unlike anything I've ever seen. This is magic on screen. I have to have this. And would eventually get the Ocarina of Time myself. And that is the first time I can ever remember crying during a video game, was when I finished Ocarina of Time. Later that, in like probably around like September or over the summer of 2000. And I remember having such a fulfilling experience. A friend of mine too from elementary school, AJ, was one of my friends who also liked video games. Outside of Pokemon, every kid liked Pokemon, but AJ was into the Nintendo 64 too, and he let me borrow his Zelda Player's Guide, the official guide from Nintendo, and that helped me through parts of the game. And I just remember how meaningful that was to me, and finishing the game and knowing that experience is over, and for the first time experiencing like a narrative in a game that had some weight to it. I understood, or at least even if I did not understand why it was sad what Link had to go through, I at least felt the general feelings of like it was pumping through me, even if I couldn't articulate to you at the time why it was sad that Link had to give up his childhood to become an adult, defeat evil in Hyrule with his best friend Navi, and basically be sent back in time, and all of his, all the help that he has done be forgotten. I just remember crying before going to church as like a 9-year-old, and just being so struck by that game. Remains one of my all-time favorites as well. But speaking of Ocarina of Time, I love that game so much that I remember they had these action figures at Toys R Us that I eventually got the little set of Zelda, Link, and Ganon. But here is my Link action figure. It's a little blown out on the camera, so here's a bit of show and tell. Can I give him a little shade here? Does that help? You can kind of see some more detail in his face this way. But this was a little official Ocarina of Time Link like action figure. He came with the Master Sword, as you can see here. It's a little bent. The shield, sadly, the shield that I had for this broke in his back. You can see there's like a little 2 dots there where you could fit the Hylian shield in. It broke off and I lost it at some point. I also have a Zelda and a Ganon that are maybe in a box of toys somewhere, but unfortunately I don't know where they are. But I loved Ocarina of Time, and I still have this action figure that like lives here. It's fantastic. But yeah, so that really represented me starting to seek out more games in this series. I would eventually be introduced to The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask, and knowing that was coming, being a big Zelda fan suddenly, having Nintendo Power, because Eddie had Nintendo Power, and my parents were convinced by him and his parents that was a great thing to get me a subscription to, was that magazine. I was ready for Majora's Mask, and I also ate that up. I think I got the game for my birthday in November, but it came out in October of 2000, so I remember going over to Eddie's and watching him play it on, I think it was Halloween, and seeing him play the like Song of Soaring for the first time, where you teleport around in that game, and seeing Link disappear into feathers and just wondering what happened. So many just powerful memories like that. And The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time for the longest time was my favorite game of all time. It has been surpassed over the years by Majora's Mask. There's something about that game that hits home a lot more for me, and the more that our world is shaped into a very scary place with, even just recently with Trump's Gestapo, like ICE, terrorizing the community, destroying, just going after people because of the color of their skin or the languages that they speak, just with no regard for civil rights that we are owed in this country. And it's not just, obviously, Trump. This is a product of capitalism, and plenty of Democrats are part of the reason why we're here today. But obviously, this is like a fascist conservative ideology, which is why we've gotten here. That has to do with Majora's Mask, because that game is all about Link losing everything he's ever had, going to a foreign land, looking for his best friend, not being able to find her, and finding a reason to help other people. I honestly could cry right now thinking about it, because it is something that still hits home for me on a very, very deep level. And seeing people around the country stick up for each other, especially, citizens and people who gives a shit if they're citizens. Anyone in Minnesota sticking up for each other in their community and trying to help each other, especially in the wake of state-sanctioned murder that we've had of at least 2 people in Minnesota, and maybe today someone in Arizona. It is the one thing that makes me feel like there's something good can come of this, and that there could be a positive outcome, and that we can get through this together. So that is what I feel like Majora's Mask is even about, is Link putting himself aside to help this whole region that he has no tie to at all, with the exception of like a couple people that he maybe met in Hyrule who happen to be there now. Yeah, that's why that game is my favorite game of all time. I also happen to just know that I'm a sucker for a sequel and seeing a character's second story, so apologies for that tangent, but it's very present right now in our world, and for me personally. So I got more questions to still ask me. That was a big sort of just like memories segment. I could think of way more that I could talk about too, like playing the Banjo-Tooie mini games, and with me and Eddie and my younger sister Carly, and we would, it was like a shooting mini game. You go around little levels in that game and shoot each other with little eggs. And anytime we would, whoever was playing the witch, often Carly had to play Gruntilda. When she would like fall over on the ground, you could see her the character's underwear was like brown, and we always said that she pooped her pants. There are little things like that we thought was funny. There were so many inside jokes that we had about video games, whether it be lines of dialogue in Star Fox 64, like things that we would quote from Pod Racer. One of the most quotable systems. I swear, games on that system were, probably because I played them over and over again, the quotes and the music stick in my mind so heavily. But I could just talk about countless memories. I made some memories this weekend of playing something that I'll talk about a little later with some friends. My friends, previous guests of the show, Jacques Molladou and Grant Moore. It's a gift that keeps on giving. As far as show and tell, we've been doing some show and tell here already. I showed you my original console and my Link action figure. I want to show you the 4 boxes that I still have a collection of games. So I'll show you my games. I'm going to show you the 4 N64 boxes that I still have from my childhood with the instruction manuals, and my favorite controller that I eventually got growing up and love. Let's start with the games. Which happen to be just 4 of my all-timers. 4 boxes we didn't get rid of. First here, you had the original Super Smash Brothers. I got this the year it came out. I remember seeing it for the first time at Eddie's house and seeing I'm a sucker for a mashup, or like 2 properties colliding. I like to tell this story about how when I was a little boy, I liked cartoons and I generally liked sports, but as soon as I saw Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan together, I was both the biggest basketball fan and the biggest Looney Tunes fan you could find. Something about that mashup just made them so much more endearing to me, and I became obsessed with both. This was kind of like that. Seeing Mario and Pikachu fight it out was amazing. I also love this game too. I love the original art, the art for this original Smash Brothers. I have the player's guide too, which I don't have out for this show and tell, but I have the Nintendo official player's guide. But there's something about this art that was just so cool. You can see the back of it too, the back of the box. This one's in okay condition. You can see there's some fraying on the edges here. This is not the one that's in the worst condition, but maybe it's an okay one that I'll open up this the box to get the manual out. So here is the instruction manual for the original Super Smash Brothers. We loved this game so much. that Eddie and I made our own Super Smash Brothers playing cards in the style of Pokemon cards. We gave characters moves, a certain amount of energy cards that it took to play, like each move. I love the original Super Smash Brothers, but yeah, part of it was the art, part of it was just the novelty of being able to play as characters in multiple properties together. I mean, look at this art here. This is so cool. Like, look at the Mario one and the Samus. This is how I learned about so many characters too. Like many kids at the time. Like, I didn't know who Samus was, who Ness was, who Captain Falcon was. I didn't have a Super Nintendo. I knew who Donkey Kong was, and Yoshi and Pikachu, Mario, Jigglypuff. That's Luigi. That's kind of it though. But yeah, loved Super Smash Brothers. We also have, I was talking about this game earlier. This box is in rough condition, but this is my original box from Super Mario 64. You can tell I got it after the year it came out because it's got the player's choice little insignia on it. But this is my original box, and I still have the manual in there too. But yeah, you can see it's kind of bent, warped. It's not in the best condition. I was just talking about this one. This might be the one in the worst condition. My Ocarina of Time box. Woo, that thing is in rough shape, but somehow not a player's choice version of it. So maybe that just happened to be the version I bought. Like, I would have assumed it would have sold the necessary, 1 million copies to have that by that time. But you can see all these boxes. The back of the box, they each have like 5 little, it's like they're all uniform from Nintendo. 5 little previews of moments in the game, as you can see here. Anyway, love Ocarina of Time. And then, of course, my favorite game of all time, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. This box is actually, the box overall is probably in the best condition. Except the edges. You can see the corners of opening up the box that are pretty rough. But you can see this is the collector's edition because I got it, near launch. Expansion pack required. I may have already had the expansion pack, or we bought it for this game. But here you go. They even have a little, you can't really see it here, the zoom, what am I looking for? Resolution's not that good, but this is a number on the back of the box to call to get the official Nintendo Player's Guide. But yeah, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask Collector's Edition, favorite game of all time, right there. Love it. Great, that's some show and tell. Ooh, let's show you this next. I will show you my favorite controller. This is from I forgot what my friend Grant was telling me what this is called, but the translucent green, also known as Jungle. This was my controller. If I was playing a game, like a single player game, this was the one that I was using. I love it. It still works today. That never broke the stick, knock on wood, but it's still in great condition today. I love it so much. It's just like, I just loved, I think it was because it had some color as a kid. I liked it a lot more than the black and the gray ones. I don't remember picking that one out, so I don't know if I asked for a controller for like Christmas and my parents got me that or what. But let's do a little more show and tell here. I'm going to show you my N64 collection of games. So all my games that I have for the Nintendo 64 are right here, if I can get these out. Oh, including a couple goodies. So let's go through this here. Some of these I've bought since I originally had the console, or bought them secondhand basically. But this is just an N64 transfer pack that I got with Pokemon Stadium to, of course, plug in my Game Boy games to bring my Pokemon into 3D. We have Diddy Kong Racing, definitely an older purchase of mine, a game I really like, but I'm not very good at. I was just talking about this, Super Smash Bros. Original, and you can see I've got my name in red Sharpie on the back, Conner M. Such a thing of those days to do. We've got, this is funny, I have 2 copies of this in here somewhere. Pokemon Stadium, because I thought I had sold mine, going into college, and I bought this one off eBay. You can kind of see there, it's D'Angelo was the original owner of this game. So shout out to you, D'Angelo, wherever you are. We have Mario Kart 64, a game I also didn't grow up with during my N64 heyday, but I grew to love because I would play it at a babysitter's house when I was about 10 years old. It was my last era of going to a babysitter. We have Mario Tennis, arguably my favorite sports game on the console. I love Mario Tennis. I played the hell out of this game, both single player and multiplayer. I'm kind of curious about the new game that's coming out for the Switch too, but I love the original Mario Tennis. That one and the one on the Game Boy Color are the only ones that I really have any experience with. This game, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, I only have this because a friend wanted me to hold on. Shout out to Liz Adams, guest from earlier, much earlier in the series. She wanted me to hold on to her N64, and eventually I was like, hey, I need to make room. Do you want this back? And she didn't. This is the only one of the only things I kept from it, because it was a game I didn't have, was Mortal Kombat Trilogy. NFL Blitz 2000, also one of my easily favorite sports game. Another game that I played at that daycare growing up in about 4th grade that I have some special memories of playing that with friends in Los Angeles. So it's one of those games that is like stuck with me throughout time. My favorite game of all time, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. And it's the version where the cool thing about this, for those just listening at home, is that it's got, what was this called? It's not like a holographic cover, but it's this cover that like is almost like an optical illusion where it looks kind of like 3D. But this was like the original version of the game that they made. So as you twist it from left to right, you can see it looks like Link moves a little bit, and like the text and him are 3D or in front of the mask back there. Anyway, I love this game. Pokemon Stadium 2, a game that I don't remember when I got this. I think it was when I was a kid, but I played a lot less than the original Stadium. I wish I would have played this when Gold and Silver came out, because I would have absolutely loved it. We have Turok 2 here. I also don't remember buying this. I may have gotten this on like an eBay auction in high school of like a few N64 games at a time, or it may have come with another game that I bought. Bomberman 64, another game I basically don't even think I've turned this on. This is also another game from Liz's previous collection. Let's put that there. We have Perfect Dark, a shooter that I have minimal experience with, but I played a decent amount at friends' houses growing up. But this is a copy I bought, I believe, in 2019 when GameStop was doing this crazy sale. It was like buy two, get one N64 games at, just used N64 games. Here is the N64 Rumble Pack, so I can play. These batteries are probably bad. I should probably take these out. Yeah, no doubt about it, I should take these out. They look fine, but there's no way they should be in here. I should use this for Ocarina of Time or Star Fox 64. Let's see. The second copy of the original Pokemon Stadium right there. Okay, we also have a game that when I was... Okay, this is Mischief Makers. This is a platformer by Treasure. It's the developer. This game I heard about back in the day when we first ever did a Space Solace episode on Video Games, a Comedy Show. Space Solace is a format. It's basically like a fantasy draft meets a desert island scenario where we are always space researchers out, on some ship in deep space, but we have one console's whole allotment of games. Inevitably, we always get hit by an asteroid, so we have to then draft 5 games each before we get shot off in our escape pods. It's just a fun exercise. This is a game I learned about when we did our first ever Space Solace back in the day, and I bought it, and I barely played it. But apparently it's pretty good. So that's Mischief Makers. We have a game that deserves all the criticism it gets, but I'll still love it forever. Donkey Kong 64. Maybe the most quotable game on the system. Oh, Banana. The first ever Oh, Banana. We have... a game that I played before I even played the first one. One of my top games on the system, Banjo-Tooie. I know it's it's bloated compared to Banjo-Kazooie, but I love it regardless. Right next to it, Banjo-Kazooie. I definitely bought this secondhand. You can see someone with the last name of Atherton had it. Who could that be? Atherton, I have your copy. My original copy of Super Mario 64. Enough said about that one. We have... Star Wars Rogue Squadron. I was a big Star Wars kid, like a lot of people, and I loved this game even though I really sucked at it and couldn't get past like level 3. Did not know how to deploy those cables from that ship to take down the AT-ATs, whatever it's called. Okay, my original copy of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. It'll definitely be a copy that has some of those original changes done. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 on the N64. I don't know why I have this. This is my favorite Tony Hawk, not on this system, the GameCube or the PS2 version. That's my favorite version. We also have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1. I adore this. This is the console that I played this game on. I love Tony Hawk 1, even if it's a little more, rudimentary or less evolved than some of the better games that would come after it. I also don't know why I had this game, Madden 2001. I don't know how that came into my possession. I don't really like this game, but it's there. We have, Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. I love this game. Again, this is a game that I got for Christmas. I think I know what this last game should be. Interesting. There's at least one game I know is not here. Major League Baseball featuring Ken Griffey Jr. And then here we have Pokemon Snap. I love Pokemon Snap very much. There's a couple games that I'm noticing aren't here in my collection that should be. We're missing, I think I didn't say these, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. I believe we're missing Kirby 64, Crystal Shards or whatever. And is that it? I mean, that might be it, but that's kind of concerning. I usually do a pretty good job of keeping my games, in one spot. Anyway, I'll put some of these away and I'll just continue the podcast since I am doing conducting an interview with myself here. Okay, that's it for show and tell. You can see some of the games over there. Let's see, what else? I've shared a bunch of meaningful memories today. My most meaningful experience on the system is probably that first time that I played The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, but the list goes on and on and on for me and this system. Are there any curiosities about the console that you've yet to uncover? I have written here, rare games, the N64 DD, peripherals, etc. ROM hacks like Smash Remix. There are some people out there who love this console very much and love many systems. This isn't unique to the N64, but I played for the first time this weekend Smash Remix, which is a version of Smash 64 that some fans have added. It's like triple the characters that you remember. It's triple the stages. There's more features that you can use, more modes. And it's so cool seeing characters that were planned for the original Smash Brothers that didn't make it in that game, like Peach and Bowser. And also seeing characters like Lucas, who I really love, from Mother 3, which doesn't really fit that game. Sonic the Hedgehog is in that game. The girl from Mischief Makers, whatever her name is, or even the piano from Super Mario 64. And then to play on stages that are original too and so well designed. It's amazing. I would love to mess around with the N64 DD at some point. For those who don't know, that was a peripheral that was a disk drive system that was going to be an add-on to the N64 that was released in Japan and canceled before it came to the United States. There's just things that were available on that were never available here, like I believe Mario Artist was one of those. Rare games that I would like to play. Are there any big rare titles that I've yet to try? There are some, like I had a friend come on and discuss Space Station Silicon Valley once. That remains an oddity to me and something that I've just never touched. There are games such as that I did play growing up that I don't have now, which are accessible, like Glover. I remember renting Glover one time specifically from the Blockbuster in town for a weekend and just being so fascinated by it, but also mostly confused. And I would love to play that someday. I've also missed out on Star Wars Shadows of the Empire. I never really played that. I think I should also have a copy of GoldenEye, now that I think about that over here. So I might have a couple games in a different spot. But there's so much that I still want to experience and explore in the N64. Quest 64, for example, is one. Oh, I don't own a copy of Paper Mario. That's right. I was about to be like, where's my Paper Mario? But I have played it. I played it on the Virtual Console. Do I play the N64 in the year 2026? Yes. But I would say my N64 playing like a lot of retro consoles is rare. And that is because I'm often playing new things for podcasts that are not on the console, so I'm usually playing stuff on the Switch or my computer or my PlayStation 5. Right now I'm playing something on the 3DS. I've been playing a couple games on the PSP. But every year I try to get around to playing a game on every one of my consoles. I don't do that. Like, I think last year I didn't play anything on the Xbox 360, so my 360 and my PS3 were just rotting away, but I did play something on the Wii U. I will break out the N64 for certain parties, whether we played we had like a Clay Fighter 63 and a third tournament at a fighting game night that I hosted last year, which was fun. We'll break out Mario Kart, Diddy Kong Racing, Smash. So party-wise, it's in the rotation, and that is something that like was always the case back in the day, was just having people over to play. Oh, Mario Party 2 is another game that's not here. Okay, let's see. Is that my camera messed up? My camera's good. Mario Party 2 is another game that I own that is not here, but I absolutely love. Really makes me wonder where those games are. And how devastating would it be if I went through them and showed them to you, but I just couldn't remember. This is the first time we see early signs of me having memory issues. I guess that wouldn't be funny. Yeah, just so many multiplayer and solo experiences that were so special, or playing with a friend, or just like my sister sitting down with me to play, or Eddie, or like watching Eddie play Star Fox 64 is like as fun as I have playing the game, because he knows it like the back of his hand. He knows how to do the fun things, make it dramatic. Yeah, I still play it. I actually really want to play at least one of these games this year. We're going to be, in certain ways, celebrating the N64 outside of these N64 Diaries throughout the network this year. And I know one thing I want to do. I don't know what game, although I have a few ideas of what I want to do this with, but I do plan to play one N64 game at least for the co-op series. If you don't know about the co-op series, it's a bonus version of this podcast where I sit down and do, with a panel, cover a game in an overview style format. So for an hour and a half to 2 hours, we talk about everything we want to about a game. It doesn't go through every single detail, but we highlight all the things we want to highlight, things that we think are that in the ways that the game excels, critiques we have at the game, memories we have with it, things that it does that other games don't. For example, you can listen to those podcasts on this feed. I think even next week, our episode about Mother 3 is going to come out on the feed here, but on our Patreon, the most recent release was a discussion about Night in the Woods, and coming up next month, we're discussing Me and My Katamari for the PSP. It's a bonus series I do. We're going to cover one N64 game. I definitely know what I want to do. I think I just want to make my crew and then set a date for it, possibly in April or May, because we know what came in January, we know what's coming in February. I've got an idea for March, but I plan to play the N64 this year, and I should just kind of have it set up. Speaking of the oddities and stuff earlier, I am interested in purchasing an Analog 3D, which is the company's Analog, their N64 system that they released that can play original software, that can run like original hardware, and also has so many ways that you can just customize your experience and make games do things that they never were able to do on the N64. I'm definitely interested in picking one of those bad boys up, but I'm not in a rush. So if I ever have some spare change rolling around in my pocket, as change does, I might consider purchasing one of those to just have like a backup in case my N64 goes someday, which at some point, I don't know when, but it's just gonna. It stood the test of time for, at this point, what is going on 28 years, but we'll see. Yeah, I also play N64 on Switch Online. Sometimes I'll dabble with stuff. I love to just go in and bop around on a game really quick. I ended up playing all the way through Ocarina of Time there last year. I've messed around with like Mario Golf, plenty of things, and there's plenty more that I hope comes that way, but that system. But that's how I'm playing the 64. It's usually original hardware, but sometimes on the emulated versions on the Switch and Switch 2 online systems. And lastly, I'll just close with some final thoughts, which are, it's going to be a lot of me repeating myself from earlier, but I would not be doing this podcast or having the conversations that I have with people about video games, or who knows, maybe even where I am today without the Nintendo 64. It hit me at the perfect time. I fell in love with it, and to this day, it just remains one of the most impactful things to ever come into my life. I could probably also name like a movie that did that for me as a kid, like Who Framed Roger Rabbit as one, or books that I read, or music that I heard, or people that I met that just changed my life. And this is one of those things for me, is this console. It was the springboard for me onto something that became a hobby, which is now I can only describe as a passion. Because of that, podcasting and articulating myself about video games and just being friends with people has just opened up my whole world to make comedy and content about video games, to meet new people and make new friends. Even I'm constantly still meeting people in the game space, whether they be journalists or content creators or other developers like myself who are like, I am just here because of the push that the N64 sort of gave me. So I will always be thankful for it as the console that springboarded me there, that I had such a thorough experience with as well. It was when gaming became my hobby and not just something that was thrust upon me or that just kind of appeared in front of me that I enjoyed, which is many things in my life. Can't really say much more than that. This is Connor's N64 Diary. This has been episode 1. I'm so excited to have more people on. I will definitely line someone up for the month of February and I'll promise to do, maybe not February, maybe March. I'm going to commit now to doing 6 of these this year. And if we do more, great. But we're at least going to hear from 5 other people about what the N64 means to them. Hopefully get into some of the nitty gritty like I talked about today. And just hear from people, expand our sort of experience and who we hear from about why this console means certain things to certain people. Let's go ahead and plug some stuff today, why don't we? The cover art for Call Me By Your Game is done by Glenn J. You can find him and his other great work on the Instagram in the show notes, including anything I'm about to plug. Scroll down in the show notes, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast catcher. You'll find a link to this too. The whole podcast is produced, edited, and the original music is done by Mr. Jeremy Schmidt. You can follow me on social media at Conner McCabe on Blue Sky specifically. Definitely give me a follow over there. You can follow the podcast as well on Blue Sky, Instagram, and YouTube. And this is one of those episodes you got to watch on YouTube. You got to see some of the visual aids that I was showing you earlier and see my show and tell portion. But even if you're more of an audio listener, give us a subscribe over there on YouTube. We're approaching 150 subscribers. We're a pretty small channel, but I want to keep that growing because the more people that subscribe there, find the podcast, and get in our little ecosystem of listening to all the stuff I put out. You can also, lastly, if you're still here, once again, check us out on Patreon. If you like me and the conversations I have with people, or just myself, about video games, and you want more of that, or you just want to support me in the stuff that we are making over here as an independent outlet, check us out on patreon.com/Super NPC Radio. That is a place where you can support us all the way from a free tier up through higher financials to either just put some weight behind us as we can continue to make great comedy-focused video game content. But also, if you want bonus products for that, we make so many bonus video game podcasts. There's stuff at every tier, including the free tier, gets you access to the occasional bonus, but also gives you access to our Discord channel where you can have great conversations with some like-minded sweet folks over there. The $1 tier, which is actually, but starting next week, February 1st, that is changing to the $2 tier. That's the only financial change we have on our Patreon this year. So I'll just call it the $2 tier. You get the ability to vote in our every quarter Games Club election. So 4 times a year you can vote on what we are going to cover as a crew. You also get access to a huge backlog of our previous content. So everything from 2024 and before that we've ever done on a bonus tier, even if that was like at the $10 tier, that is available for the $2 patrons now too. The Games Club is at the $5 tier, the New Games Club, which again is Fire Emblem Awakening right now. And then at the $10 tier, you are going to be getting the Call Me By Your Game co-op series and also the Games Club Plus. So it's more of an after-hours discussion we record after those Games Club episodes, about every other one. It's a whole nother episode. So 2 extra bonuses a month at that Engineer Toad tier at $10. But anyway, that's enough pitching the Patreon. Thank you so much for listening to Call Me By Your Game and this first edition of the N64 Diaries. Let me know what the N64 means to you on the Discord, replying to this Blue Sky post on Instagram, message me, and I look forward to bringing you more interviews about what this console means to other people. We'll see you on the next one.